I am delighted to welcome all of you to the finals of the 82nd Annual W. Wallace Fry Public Speaking Contest, which marks the official beginning of the 125th commencement exercises of the Missouri Military Academy. This evening, 7 cadets will vie for the Wallace Fry Public Speaking Award and the Churchill Memorial Plaque, the 2 awards that you see before you. In 1932, the late Judge Fry of the MMA class of 1903 inaugurated his award to be presented each year to that cadet at Missouri Military Academy whose speech is judged to be the best on the basis of delivery, content, and rhetorical skill. An additional incentive was added to the contest in 1970 when Westminster College, located in Fulton, Missouri, provided the Sir Winston Churchill Memorial Award. The Churchill Award goes to the cadet whose well-delivered message espouses a just cause and the spirit and passion of Winston Churchill's life. The speeches tonight represent the work of the entire MMA Cadet Corps. Competition began months ago as each cadet researched and wrote a paper on a vital issue of today for their English class. Each student then presented his speech in preliminary competition. Teachers selected semifinalists from each class who were then judged by an MMA panel in early May. That competition resulted in the selection of the 7 finalists who you see before you this evening. The cadets will speak in the order shown on your program without introduction. There is one correction that for Sean Fitzgerald from Mexico, Missouri, his speech is actually on the tragedy of domestic violence. The judges who will determine the winner of the Fry Cup and the Churchill Plaque are as follows. Mr. Lou Leonati, J.D. Leonati and Baker, P.C., Mexico, Missouri. Lou, please stand, be recognized. It is actually that law office that is connected with Judge Wallace Fry, who started this program. Dr. Zachary Templeton, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Mexico Public Schools, Mexico, Missouri. And Dr. Gregory Smith, Associate Professor of English and Film Studies, William Woods University, Fulton, Missouri. After the final speaker, while the judges are deliberating, the Missouri Military Academy Colonel's Jazz Band, under the direction of Captain Josh Yancey, will provide some musical entertainment. So without further ado, let us now begin the speech contest.
Hello. Today's topic for today, Should the State Execute Dogs That Have Bitten Someone? By Chandler Logan Bollinger. Has a dog bitten you before? Have you seen a dog bite someone? Do you think the dog does it in defense or randomly just bites the person? If you have been bitten by a dog, will you execute the animal? Even if it's just for fun? Well, some dogs get executed for playing around and biting someone. The person thinks that the dog did it on purpose for no reason. By law, in this state, if a dog bites someone for any reason to someone, they put a report to the police. They get executed. I think this should not happen sometimes. When your dog runs loose and bites someone, you get notified, right? But no, that does not happen all the time. In some courts, if a dog is running at large and bites anyone, the government has the power to put the dog down without the owner being notified. I think this is wrong. This is when the Constitution comes into play. It states that your property can't be taken from you without giving you due process, the right to have a hearing. But courts don't listen to that rule all the time. Dogs don't bite someone for any reason sometimes. They might do it in defense, like when a person is petting the dog and warns them not to touch him. Well, the court, in their eyes, sometimes when a dog bites someone, the dog did it for no reason. or if the owner gets notified, the reason's not enough to convince the court. The dog usually dies. I think that is sad. When a cat bites you and makes you bleed, do you worry about it? No? Maybe. But actually, a cat's bite contains more germs than a dog's bite. It also means that the bite will get infected more easily than a dog's bite. But the population of cats being executed is less than dogs getting executed. I think that is a little weird. What if the dog bites for no reason at all? Well, that's when the problem between defense or no reason. The judge needs to decide one of the two. Like I said, the dog usually dies. This is bad. It sometimes isn't fair because the judge doesn't like dogs. That really isn't a fair trial, isn't it? We need to have judges who have knowledge about dogs. It will give the owner and the dog a fair trial. The dogs, if they do bite someone and live by court, they usually go to the dog pound. At the dog pound, the pound gets too full of capturing dogs. The facility has to put the dog down if no one wants him. But there are more ways to help him get out. There are the owner reclaims the dog, gets adopted, sold, or destroyed. A lot of dogs get put down more than the other options that I just said. This happens when a dog bites someone, just for biting someone. Now there's a little hope if a dog bites someone. The rule is called the one bite rule. It gives the dog to have one free bite, free for its owner, when it bites someone. The owner should know that the dog is dangerous, but that rule is not applied to every state here in America, including Missouri. There are only 19 states with the one bite rule. The rule should be applied for every state because it's more fair for the owner and the dog. I think our man's best friend should have more rights in court and the law. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Little kids get candy for doing a good job in something. In school, students get a little golden star when they're in elementary, maybe a scholarship when they get older. Adults get paid for doing their job. Money incentives seem to be a very good way to motivate a lot of people in their different activities. But paying students seem to be a lot more common now than it was before. To people, that may seem okay, but until what point is that okay? For how much time is it okay? Is it the most effective method? In this speech, I will discuss all of those points, so maybe at the end you will have a different perspective. Should students be paid for getting good grades? That is a very good question, and one that we can all relate to from when we were children. When we got a good grade at school, we will come back excited to our parents, and we would always expect a reward for it, like candy or maybe a new toy. That served as a stimulation for children to get good grades. They saw it as a win-win situation. If they got good grades, then their parents would be happy, and they will be happy too because they got rewarded. In a sense, that is just a way to plant the seed in little kid children's that getting good grades is something that can bring very good rewards. Rewarding students when they do well in school is common only up to a certain point. For example, when kids are in college, they do not expect to get a reward every time they get an A, because they know that that's what they're supposed to be doing. To put it in perspective, does a mom get paid every time she drops off her kid at school or when she picks them up? No, because that's her responsibility and that is not a job. That's exactly the same for students as getting good grades and behaving at school. It is their responsibility and they should not expect a reward for it or even get paid every time they get a good grade. With that said, we should also make mention of the fact that rewarding them when they are young is not particularly bad. Why? Because it leaves a seed in their mind that getting good grades is good and gets you rewards sometimes. An example of that to apply to a more mature group of students would be to say that if you get good grades, you can get into a better school or maybe even get a scholarship. That, for instance, is a huge reward not given to many people. So even at that stage of their lives, students get rewarded with many things when they do good at school. It's just in a different way than when they were little. So rewarding young kids every time they get a good grade is actually a very good idea if you want them to try hard as they keep growing and developing. One of the major issues in paying students is asking yourself when to stop. This is a major issue because if you stop too early, then you have the possibility of the kid not being mature enough and telling you that he will not go to school until you start paying again. One of the strategies parents use is gradually start decreasing the amount of money they give to their children. The other option is to wait for the kid to be mature enough to accept the fact that going to school and getting a good grade is not a reason to get paid, because that is a responsibility and not a job. Many schools throughout the country did research, and they discovered that money does not really motivate many students to learn. Because of that, many students just think that school is a way to get money and not a way to learn. A proved way that is one of the most effective ways to motivate young people is to be willing to recognize their accomplishments. I believe this method to be effective, and one of those examples is when you see your name on the honor roll. You keep trying hard to put your name there because you're proud of it. Another good example, as stated before, is going the extra mile and transcending above all of your classmates to be one of the highest accomplished kids in your grades and to be able to get a scholarship. People with not too many resources use this as a motivation to get into a good college if they cannot go without it. In conclusion, I believe that paying students is only acceptable up to a certain age and depending on why you do it. Paying a little kid a stimulation for getting good grades is a good idea because then he will stay with the habit of studying a lot and getting good grades, and that might carry him all the way through his academic years. But in my opinion, from the middle school and after that, students should not get paid if they get good grades because they are mature enough to differentiate a job from a responsibility. As I stated in the essay, there are a lot more different and effective ways to motivate young kids than by paying him to get good grades. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muhammad Imran Babak, and my title is The Mightiest Weapon. A country's improvement and success depends upon the education, skill, and health of its people. Education is the clearest pathway to opportunities, which is why so much injustice and inequalities are associated with the lack of education. Most of the rebellion groups achieve what they want by taking away education from the society, which is the key to success in everything. When children in a society grow up in poverty and without education, they end up as uneducated adults. By having uneducated adults, the cycle of having a weak government will continue. So, to break the cycle from generation to generation, the government should invest in all children's education and futures. If we take a look back at the world's history, the key to progress of every successful society was education. Looking back, we also can see how lack of education destroyed some other societies as well. Most of the powerful governments, to remain dominant over other societies and to achieve their goals, kept education away from these societies and kept the people ignorant. They destroyed their education, which as a result ruined their economy in a very short time. And when they economically became weak, they couldn't stand against their enemy. This method is still being used by opposing groups of different governments today all around the world as well. Not too long ago, in the 1960s and 1970s, Afghanistan was one of the most powerful governments in the Middle East with a very strong economy and a broad educational systems. Besides male employees in high educational institutions, 40% of medical school students and 60% of literature students in Kabul University were females. The Soviet Union's invasions of Afghanistan and the successive wars beginning in 1979 caused a large majority of people to flee and destroyed the educational system throughout the entire country, and many schools lost their supplies and teachers. This situation restricted millions of school-aged children and university students from obtaining their education, which as a result brought Afghanistan an uneducated generation and destroyed Afghanistan in many different ways, such as economy, development, and government corruption. Overall, it restricted females from having their rights. Fortunately, after decades of war and the collapse of the Taliban regime in 2001, schools opened again for both boys and girls. In 2002, more than 1 million kids attended school with having no supplies at all, including notebooks, textbooks, classrooms, not even pens. During the last 12 years, Afghanistan economically and educationally has improved notably. Now, in contrast to 2001, more than 8 million kids attend school, with 37% of them being girls. The majority of you have met my cousin, Shabana Basij Rasekh, who is a co-founder of a school for girls in Afghanistan. During the Taliban regime, or the dark period, when education for girls was restricted, she attended a secret school which was held in a house in Kabul city. She had to take a different path every day to not be identified by the Taliban. And the danger of being caught was very high every day, which could result in the killing of both her and her family. After struggling with a variety of problems, she finished high school and went to Middlebury College and graduated with honors. After her graduation, she returned to Afghanistan and opened a school for girls. It is because of education that we are all gathered here from all around the world, from Mexico, Cuba, El Salvador, even from other corners of the world, from China, Mongolia, Egypt, and Afghanistan. When people ask me ignorant questions about where I come from, I get frustrated because they do not understand that I'm not here out of my fear. I'm here to get the best possible education I can and return to my country to help save my people one way or another. Governments around the world use their whole power to try to invent the most dangerous and effective weapons, and some of them think that they have succeeded, but they are wrong. Now, let me ask you a rhetorical question. What do you think? What is the mightiest and most dangerous weapon? The mightiest and most dangerous weapon that you can use against any enemy is this, a pen, the weapon of knowledge. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sean Fitzgerald, and tonight I will be talking to you about domestic violence. Imagine living in a house where abuse takes place and where you couldn't sleep at night without being worried that you could be abused. You couldn't, could you? Could you think this would never happen to you? Well, some people in the world live with domestic violence every single day of their lives. What is domestic violence, you might ask? Domestic violence is a violent confrontation between family or household members involving physical harm, sexual assault, or fear of physical harm. According to the United Nations, domestic violence is not unusual around the world. About 1.3 million women and 835,000 men are physically assaulted by a partner. Domestic violence is the leading injury to women between the ages of 15 to 44. There are women being beaten every 15 seconds by our partner, and we only have 1,500 shelters for these battered and abused women, but we have 3,800 animal shelters. This means we are more willing to take time off our hands to do something less important than taking care of our own people. First, the problem of domestic violence is the victims. Did you know that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence during their lifetime, and that those women are more likely to be killed by their intimate partner than men are? There are 4,000 women being abused each year. Of the women who are being abused, 75% of them are dying or being killed. Women who are the ages of 20 to 24 are more likely to experience domestic violence. Every year, 1 in 3 women who have experienced domestic violence is murdered by her current or former partner. Victims of domestic violence are not the only ones who suffer from it. Their families suffer too. Domestic violence affects families every year because they are forced to move and separate. The stress of domestic violence can have a big effect on children and can even make them abuse their partner later in life. Every year, 3 million children witness domestic violence in their home, and the children who witness this may also suffer from abuse and neglect. There are also many consequences for domestic violence. The consequences are not only for the offender, but also for the victim. Domestic violence is the third leading cause to homelessness in the United States. The victims of domestic violence may face high rates of depression, sleep disturbances, anxiety, and other emotional stress. Domestic violence crimes are never reported because they are too scared to speak out. I have personally seen the effects of domestic violence and what it can do to a family. It makes life miserable and almost impossible to live through. There are families all over the world that go through domestic violence situations and are forced to take actions to make a better life. I believe that we put the victims under too much pressure, and we think they should just be able to leave the life they have with no problem. The thing is that we're wrong, and that we don't actually understand what they're going through. I believe that there are many things that we can do to help the people who are victims of domestic violence. It's not that easy for them when they've been cut off from their families and friends. We have to be a part of the reason why they're able to get away from domestic violence. You can do this by getting these people back to a normal life. If you don't know how to help, here are a few ways that you could, and that is to start a fundraiser, volunteer, or donate. I encourage all of you to go to helpguide.org, a trusted nonprofit organization, and donate clothes or a little bit of money. You could even go down to a domestic violence shelter and volunteer through there. Help me change these people's lives. Speak up, speak out, and make a difference for victims of domestic violence. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Octavio Gomez, and I will talk to you about blood diamonds. When people think of diamonds, they tend to think about wealth, luxury, and everlasting love. But sadly, there are people to whom diamonds signify pain and suffering. Over 3 million lives have been lost to the illicit diamond trade in Africa. Millions more have been mutilated. Countless people at this very moment are working to the death in muddy riverbanks, sifting through dirt looking for diamonds, while armed rebels look for any sign of desertion or disobedience. This is the reality of the diamond demand on the African people, mainly from countries such as Sierra Leone and the Ivory Coast. Many African countries are grounds for civil war, and all parties involved need funding for their cause. They need ways to get money quickly and in large amounts. The land is rich in mineral resources, and the people of the nearby villages are seen as manpower to exploit those minerals. The first diamonds were found in Sierra Leone in the 1930s. Ever since then, the profits were seized by the government and divided among the top officials, creating a huge corruption system that overlooks the needs of the people. So even though the people needed electricity, sewage, education, security, and other things we consider essential, the diamond mining industry was only beneficial to those who were ruling the country. The government kept all the money for themselves. That was until foreigners turned their attention away from Africa. Up until 1984, the mines were controlled by both the government and private European companies, such as De Beers. But since De Beers broke from the venture, the rebel armies have contested over the control of the mining areas, reaching up to Central and Western Africa. As the rebels gain control of more mines, more people each time are forced to work for them without virtually any pay. The average worker would have to work for 3 weeks non-stop to buy a loaf of bread. Under the working conditions of extreme heat, the total lack of sanitation, which leads to disease and infection, and all that is combined with the trauma of war and occupation on their lands. The rebels are brutal and violent on the people they control. They have been known for raiding villages, shooting people on sight, and later raping and torturing survivors. When it is time to work on the mines, refusal is punishable by mutilation. Many people have had their hands cut off or their legs. Some others just might get shot, clubbed to death, or even decapitated. Everyone can be punished. Sometimes, the rebels take revenge on the families of deserters. which include children, regardless of their age or gender. Not only do the prophets fuel violence in Africa, but terrorist groups such as Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda are known to have benefited from the money coming from blood diamonds. Al-Qaeda spent around $500,000 on the September 11 attacks. Just a year before that, they converted $20 million worth of diamonds into banknotes. That means that the deaths of 2,996 people, the illness of over 18,000, and the shock of the entire world ever since that day was made possible by illegally mined African diamonds. The money that comes from this business reaches people from all over the world, so there is a major list of criminal people and organizations that have used blood diamonds to fund their activities and resources. Western countries also share a bit of the blame. The United States is the world's largest diamond retailer, purchasing 65% of the world's diamonds, of which 10 to 15% are blood diamonds that have made their way from the West African mining villages. Evidently, the illegal production of diamonds is a major factor in crimes against humanity. Many attempts have been made to stop this problem, not through direct intervention in the conflicts, but by setting standards that will keep conflict diamonds from entering the legitimate trade. The best example of this is the Kimberley process, which is a joint government, society, and industry initiative to cut the flow of conflict diamonds. The Kimberley process was established in the year 2000 in South Africa, and so far there are 81 countries who have volunteered to set the Kimberley process certification scheme as part of their diamond trade protocols. We must all be aware of the violent situation in Africa, and we should take a part in stopping the illegal diamond trade. In order to do this, if you ever want to buy a diamond, ask your store for their Kimberley process certification. That way you can be sure that you are purchasing a legitimate, conflict-free diamond and that you are not contributing to this shameful situation. We must all help our African brothers and sisters reach a dignified and peaceful lifestyle. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patricio Lopez Clares, and I'm going to be talking about the modern family, Chile, Italy, Ecuador, Florida. To you, these sound like very beautiful locations to go on vacation, but there is one thing that connects them all together. All of these places openly ban lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender adoptions. The list keeps on growing if you factor in the states that ban gay marriage. On the surface, this looks to be an only gay rights issue, and all through, it most definitely is. There is also a big issue that many people tend to exaggerate. That issue is the children themselves. People debating this hot topic will overlook that because they are against homosexuals. They're actually hurting thousands of children all over the United States and the world. One might ask, what is gay adoption? Gay adoption, or LGBT, is an adoption where the child is adopted by a person of a different sexual orientation. Gay adoption may take the form of a traditional adoption by a gay couple, an adoption by one partner of a same-sex couple of the other biological child, or an adoption by the person who is bisexual, lesbian, gay, or transgender. Same-sex couples should have the right to adopt because they have the ability to be just as good parenting as straight couples. There is a lot of anti-gay adversaries who are convinced that it is wrong without knowledge of same-sex parenting techniques, like stereotypes about gay parenting, such as gay parents raise homosexual kids, or that children of gay parents have more problems, and gay men are likely to abuse or rape children are absurd. Considering the research, evidence suggests that there is no correlation that affects between gay parents and the sexuality of their kids. The United States has thousands of children waiting to be adopted. Older children and children with special needs are especially hard to place. Kids who are in this category are in foster homes right now with same-sex parents who would want to adopt them and help them. It is unfair to deny these children the opportunity of a family and a secure home. Most of the children in the United States do not live with a traditional married couple. In fact, according to the 2000 census, only 24% of the homes, it's less than a quarter, are composed of a married mother and father with children living in home. The Florida court says that children are better off raised in a two-parent heterosexual house. However, studies prove that children who grow up in a same-sex household are just as well emotionally and socially as children whose parents are heterosexual. Studies show that children are more influenced by interactions with their parents than by the sexual orientation, both in home and in school. And finally, there is no legal reason why same-sex should not have the right to adopt children. The law is hurting these children who are waiting to be adopting, keeping away loving parents who would like to take care of these children. LGBT adoption is currently legal in 14 countries worldwide, as well as various jurisdictions throughout the world like Argentina, Andorra, Brazil, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Netherlands, the United Kingdom. However, it is prohibited the majority of countries throughout the world. In a perfect world, every child would live with a perfect family. But seriously, can anyone tell me what is a perfect family? No one? Who says what sort of home is perfect? Maybe a home that provides safety, comfort, and love is a perfect home. And that's exactly what these same-sex couples are offering. But not everyone has a chance of having a house and family. There are kids who would love to have that chance. Therefore, I think that adoption should be allowed for same-sex couples. When I first started this investigation, I was totally against of LGBT adoption. But after doing a little bit of research, I found out that I was wrong in 1,000 different ways. Same-sex couples are dying to make their lives happy. After all I have to say is, America the brave still fears what we don't know. Darn right, I support this. The rest is up to you. Thank you.
Good evening. America's educational system was once the envy of the world. Today, sadly, the same cannot be said. The U.S. now slides in the global ranking in math, reading, and science, the three core subjects. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, we have fallen from 25th to 31st in math, 11th to 21st in reading, and 20th to 24th in science. While students from China, Singapore, Japan, Finland, Korea, and New Zealand were among the top 10 in the global ranking, the U.S. failed to crack even the top 20 in any subject. So what is it that our competitors are doing right that we fail to do in order to produce these better academic results? One of the reasons for the weakening of our educational system is budget cuts faced by our schools. These cuts result in the elimination of school programs, a lack of resources, increased class size, and underpaid teachers. Many states and school districts have undergone vital school reform initiatives to better prepare their students for the future. But deep cuts in the funding often obstruct their ability to implement these reforms. At a time when producing intellectual leaders and workers are imperative to our country's prosperity, large cuts in funding for education threaten to weaken our future. Another major problem faced by students and educators alike are the national standards implemented by the government. These standards are often a cause for increased confusion among educators rather than the solutions to the fundamental problems in our school system. They put more emphasis on preparing students for standardized tests rather than on teaching the core content. Programs and acts such as No Child Left Behind force schools to push students to a higher grade level without adequate preparation. As a result, more than half of our nation's students have not reached the proficiency in reading, math, and science required by their current grade level. While other factors do play a role, a part of the blame also lies on the students themselves. Unlike students from top-performing countries, our students are not pressured to prioritize academics as highly. This limited importance of academics lowers the desire students have to stay in and succeed in school. In fact, recent data has shown that only 75% of American high school seniors in 2010 earned their diploma. Those students lacking a complete education are at a disadvantage because 85% of current jobs require some or more post-secondary education. As a result, more Americans live in poverty because they do not have the education required to succeed in the modern world. This direct correlation between the students' determination and their future shows why it is vital that we pressure our students to perform to the best of their abilities. A very common misconception among people when asked about why American education is falling behind is to place the blame on teachers. The truth is, the vast majority of teachers are working overtime without the tools or the budget to manage the numerous issues inside and outside the classroom. Budget cuts on schools have left teachers without much needed resources and have also prevented teachers from receiving pay raises. Consequently, many respectable teachers are leaving the profession. Teachers play a wide and important role. They are providers, supporters, facilitators, and a catalyst for change to their students and their schools. Therefore, to improve our educational system and compete with other countries, it is essential that we support and boost the morale of our teachers. Though blaming teachers for problems faced by American schools has been popular lately, a new survey points out a problem closer to home. An Associated Press Stanford University poll on education found that 68% of people believe parents share blame for our weakened education system. In the case of most students, both parents are at work trying to support their family, leaving no one to monitor and support their children. As a result, the level of academic achievement significantly diminishes as students progress through the elementary to secondary grades. In fact, 23% of high school dropouts cite that a lack of support and encouragement from their parents as a reason they quit school. In order to prevent student failure and raise student ambition, it is crucial that parents take responsibility and work alongside with schools to raise the bar for our students. America needs to incorporate positive aspects of other top-performing nation school systems in order to improve our students' achievements and become more competitive. For instance, students in top-performing nations are pressured to put more emphasis on education, thus resulting in a harder work ethic. In addition, schools in top-ranking nations are adequately funded and sustained. Perhaps the greatest difference is that teachers are highly respected, rewarded well, and are encouraged to develop professionally throughout their career. They are trained extensively and provided opportunities to improve their practices. Most importantly, teachers have the support from parents and are backed by the school administration and their government in order to do their job professionally. Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." More than ever, this holds true today in our rapidly advancing globalized world. Hence, the decline in educational standing in America brings out a sense of urgency to improve the quality of our education if our future generation is to remain globally competitive. This can be achieved if we, as a collective nation, take a good look at what's wrong with our current educational system and strategize methods through which we can eliminate these problems. With a combined effort of parents, students, teachers, school administration, and local and national government, we can bring our education back to the top in the world. Thank you.
We will now have about a 10-minute intermission while the judges deliberate. So please enjoy some camaraderie and the music of the MMA Jazz Band. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Before we give out the awards, I want to acknowledge some important people. First off, what the boys did today had to take the work and guidance and support of the English teaching staff, specifically Lieutenant Roos, Lieutenant Olive, Lieutenant Hill, Color Sergeant Mike Harding, and also our librarian, Catherine Larison. So I want to extend a thanks to them, please, for their good work, helping our boys. And also any other teacher or academician who helped with their work. And of course, I think we should also give an applause for the great work these young men did this evening, please. Sometimes we fail to forget as educators with the instructional technology, with the world being smaller, with the idea of different forms of teaching methodologies and 21st century skills, that public speaking and rhetoric gets pushed aside. But it is true, it was true thousands of years ago with the rhetoricians of ancient Greece and Rome, and it's true today, that what you say and how you say it means so much. And so we are committed as a teaching staff, as a school, to teach our boys great rhetoric and great public speaking, and we really appreciate your support. I also want to thank MMA's Jazz Band for a wonderful intermission. Thank you, Josh. And without further ado, I will bring up Dr. Zachary Templeton to begin the award ceremony.
Let me begin by saying it is my pleasure to participate in this event, and I would like to commend these young men for an outstanding exhibit of oration, public speaking. They all did an excellent job, and I really appreciate that the young people take on social issues that are so important to all of us, and it really was an enjoyable experience for me, and I do again want to say how well they did. I really enjoyed this. It is my pleasure this evening to present the award, the Winston Churchill Memorial Award, which is awarded to the cadet who speaks most persuasively on behalf of a just cause. And again, these all being important social issues, it made this decision difficult, but we felt like for this young man, the issue that he spoke on and spoke so passionately about just pushed him a little bit further than the others. So it is my pleasure to present this award to Mohammed Imran Babak.
We will now have Mr. Lou Leonati present the other award.
Thank you, Frank. And I personally really appreciate being asked to come back again, and frankly appreciate the emphasis on the ability to express your thoughts in words. Choosing a winner is often a difficult task, and it's getting more difficult every year. You guys are doing a really good job, and I hope that all of you will stay around afterwards so we can speak with each of you. Okay? All right. Judge Fry, picture hangs on our wall. My partner sits in his office, and he means a good deal to us, his legacy, and what he thought of this school. So it's my pleasure to present the Wallace Fry Cup on the topic of the American education system. Why is it falling behind? To Nishan Kanal.
Well, thank you all. This was a wonderful evening. It's a great way to start showing some of the academics that are going on here, both in the middle school and in the high school when it comes to public speaking. We begin tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for company competitive drills. We will see you there. Please drive safely. And thank you again for supporting these boys. Thank you very much.